Good evening. Welcome to Story 19 of our Middle-earth-inspired series, The Sunken Relic. Let's begin. The companions moved steadily across the barren landscape, the fractured spire's faint glow still visible on the distant horizon behind them, a quiet reminder of the battle they had left behind. Orlen felt a strange pull as they followed the faint, glowing symbols that appeared intermittently on the ground, their shifting patterns leading them deeper into the forgotten lands. The terrain grew rougher with each step, the dry, cracked earth giving way to shallow pools of water that shimmered faintly in the dim light. Cyrana led the way, her grip on the keeper's staff firm as its crystal glowed softly, its light casting eerie reflections across the rippling surface of the water. The air grew cooler, carrying the faint scent of damp earth and decay, and the hum of the spire faded into a low, rhythmic vibration that seemed to echo from somewhere deep beneath the ground. Adric paused to study the water's edge, his staff resting against his shoulder as he knelt to examine the faint runes that glimmered faintly beneath the surface. "These markings," he said softly, his voice filled with quiet awe. "They're leading us somewhere, but not above, below." The companions exchanged uneasy glances as the water deepened, spreading into a wide, still lake that stretched far beyond the horizon. Its surface was smooth and reflective, like polished glass, broken only by the occasional ripple that disturbed the eerie stillness. Orlen felt a chill run through him as he gazed across the expanse, its dark waters seeming to hold secrets too vast and ancient to comprehend. "There's something down there," he said softly, his voice trembling slightly. Cyrana nodded, her expression calm but serious as she studied the faint glow of the runes that pulsed faintly beneath the lake's surface, their patterns forming a path that led into the depths. "The spire guided us here," she said firmly, her tone steady despite the tension in the air. "This lake, it's not just water, it's guarding something." Calen shifted uneasily, his hand resting on the hilt of his sword as his sharp eyes scanned the water's edge. "And whatever it's guarding won't want us taking it," he muttered, his voice low but tense. The hum beneath the ground deepened as they moved closer to the lake's edge, the vibrations resonating through their bones as though urging them forward. Orlen hesitated, his gaze fixed on the shimmering surface, before stepping cautiously into the shallow water. The ripples spread outward in perfect concentric circles, and the faint glow of the runes beneath the surface brightened, their light steady and deliberate as though beckoning them onward. Cyrana followed, her grip on the keeper's staff firm as its light merged with the glow of the runes, casting a faint, golden glow across the lake. Adric moved beside her, his staff humming softly as its runes shimmered in response to the lake's magic. Calen lingered at the edge, his expression wary as he glanced back at the barren plain they had left behind. "We're exposed here," he said sharply, his voice breaking the silence. "If the shadows follow us, we'll have nowhere to stand." The lake grew deeper as they waded forward, the cool water rising steadily to their waists and then their chests, its stillness unnerving in its quiet resistance. Orlen felt the warmth of the relics in his pocket pulse faintly, their presence a quiet reassurance as the path of glowing runes guided them farther into the depths. The water was darker now, its surface reflecting the dim sky above, but beneath it glimmered faint traces of an ancient structure. A massive, submerged ruin whose jagged edges rose like teeth from the murky depths. The runes pulsed brighter as they reached the edge of the structure, their light casting eerie patterns across the broken walls and shattered columns that jutted out of the water. Cyrana raised the keeper's staff, its crystal glowing fiercely as she turned to the others. "This is it," she said quietly, her voice filled with awe. "This is what the spire wanted us to find." The hum beneath the ground grew louder, the vibrations rising into a low, melodic resonance that filled the air and the water around them. Orlen felt the pressure in his chest tighten as he reached out to touch the smooth, glimmering surface of the nearest column, its carvings shifting beneath his fingers like liquid light. A sudden wave of warmth surged through him, and the vision came unbidden. A flickering image of the ruin as it once was, its towering structures rising above a vibrant lake, alive with light and energy. He saw figures moving among the ruins, their forms graceful and radiant, their voices blending into a harmonious chorus that echoed across the water. But the vision darkened as the shadows came, consuming the light and leaving only the wreckage of what had once been. Orlen staggered slightly as the vision faded, the water rippling around him as he caught his breath. "It's part of the same network," he said softly, his voice trembling. "The spire, the archway, this place, they're all connected." Cyrana stepped forward, her expression resolute as she raised the keeper's staff, its light merging with the glow of the runes that pulsed across the ruins. "Then we need to uncover its secrets," she said firmly, her voice steady despite the tension in the air. The hum deepened, and the water around them began to stir, its surface rippling as though in response to their presence. Calen drew his sword, its blade catching the faint light of the runes as he turned sharply toward the shifting shadows that lingered at the edges of the ruins. "There's something strange here," he said darkly, his voice cutting through the stillness. Orlen's pulse quickened as the glow of the runes brightened, their patterns twisting and shifting like a living thing. The ruin wasn't just a relic of the past, it was alive, and it was waiting for them to uncover what lay beneath its depths. The water grew darker as the companions pressed onward, their movements cautious and deliberate, as the submerged ruins loomed larger beneath them. The faint glow of the runes guided their steps, their light steady and unwavering even as the lake seemed to grow colder and heavier with every passing moment. Cyrana kept the keeper's staff raised, its crystal flaring brightly to illuminate the jagged edges of the columns and walls that rose from the depths, their surfaces carved with intricate patterns that pulsed faintly in the dim light. Orlen felt his breath catch as he studied the ruins, their scale and complexity far greater than he had imagined, their broken forms a stark reminder of the civilization that had once thrived here. Adric moved beside him, his staff glowing softly as he muttered a quiet incantation, his voice blending with the low hum that resonated through the water and the stone. "This place wasn't just a city," he said, softly, his voice tinged with awe. "It was a sanctuary, a place of power and protection, and whatever destroyed it didn't leave by accident." The companions came to a halt at the edge of a massive, submerged platform, its surface smooth and unbroken except for the faint, spiraling patterns that glimmered beneath the water. Cyrana stepped forward, her grip on the keeper's staff firm as its light merged with the glow of the runes, casting long, shifting shadows across the platform's surface. "This is where it begins," she said quietly, her voice filled with quiet determination. Orlen felt the warmth of the relics in his pocket pulse faintly, their presence a quiet reassurance as he knelt beside the edge of the platform, his fingers brushing against the smooth surface. The moment his skin made contact, A wave of energy surged through him, and the vision returned. Clearer, more vivid than before. He saw the platform as it once was, its surface alive with light and motion, a central hub of activity, surrounded by towering structures that pulsed with energy. Figures moved across it, their forms graceful and radiant, their voices blending into a harmonious chorus that filled the air. But the vision darkened suddenly, the light fading as the shadows came, their dark forms tearing through the ruins with a relentless, consuming force. Orlen staggered slightly as the vision faded, his breath catching as he pulled his hand away. "This wasn't just a sanctuary," he said softly, his voice trembling. "It was a gateway, something that connected this place to the others. And when it fell, everything it was tied to fell with it." Cyrana exchanged a glance with Adric, her expression hard but questioning. "If it's connected to the spire and the archway, then its power might still be intact, if we can find a way to reach it," she said firmly. Adric nodded slowly, his gaze fixed on the spiraling patterns that glimmered faintly beneath the water. "The magic here is fractured, but it's not gone," he said thoughtfully. "If we can stabilize it, we might be able to restore what's left." Calen shifted uneasily, his hand resting on the hilt of his sword as his sharp eyes scanned the shadows that lingered at the edges of the light. "And what happens if we're wrong?" he muttered, his voice low but tense. "What happens if whatever broke this place comes back?" The hum beneath the water deepened suddenly, the vibrations resonating through the platform and the companions' bones with an intensity that made the air seem to ripple. The spiraling patterns on the platform flared brightly, their light flooding the lake with a golden glow that sent long shadows racing across the ruins. Orlen felt the ground beneath his feet tremble as the water around them began to stir, its surface rippling and churning as though in response to their presence. Cyrana raised the keeper's staff higher, its crystal flaring brilliantly as she stepped forward, her expression calm but resolute. "Whatever happens, we stand together," she said firmly, her voice cutting through the chaos. Adric stepped beside her, his staff glowing brightly as its runes flared in response to the platform's light, the faint hum of his magic blending with the resonance of the ruins. The water erupted suddenly, sending a cascade of spray into the air as a massive, shadowy figure emerged from the depths, its form twisting and writhing like living smoke. Orlen felt his pulse quicken as the figure loomed over them, its dark, featureless shape exuding a suffocating presence that pressed down on his chest. The spiraling patterns on the platform flared again, their light surging in defiance of the shadow's advance, and Cyrana planted the keeper's staff firmly into the ground, its light merging with the platform's glow. "It's protecting the relic," she said sharply, her voice steady despite the tension in the air. "We have to hold it back." The companions moved as one, their resolve unspoken but clear as they stood their ground against the shadow's relentless advance. Calen stepped forward, his sword flashing in the golden light as he struck at the nearest tendrils of darkness, his movements quick and precise. Adric muttered a quiet incantation, the runes on his staff flaring brightly as he sent a wave of light rippling across the platform, scattering the shadows that crept along its edges. Orlen felt the warmth of the relics in his pockets surge suddenly, their presence filling him with a quiet strength as he stepped closer to the platform's center, his gaze fixed on the spiraling patterns that pulsed with a steady, rhythmic glow. "It's responding to us," he said softly, his voice trembling slightly. "It's drawing on our light." The platform's glow intensified, its spiraling patterns resolving into a single, unified design that pulsed brightly with an ancient golden light. The shadow let out a low, resonant roar, its dark form writhing as the light pushed it back, its presence dissolving into the water as the platform's magic surged to life. Cyrana lowered the keeper's staff, her expression calm but resolute as she turned to the others. "The relic is here," she said firmly, "and we're not leaving without it." The water grew still, its surface shimmering faintly in the platform's glow, and Orlen felt a quiet sense of triumph settle over him as the companions prepared to uncover the secrets hidden beneath the lake. The platform's glow illuminated the still waters, its spiraling patterns now fully resolved into a single, intricate design that pulsed with a golden light. The companions stood together, their breaths steadying as the hum beneath the platform softened into a rhythmic vibration that felt more like a heartbeat than a sound. Orlen felt the warmth of the relics in his pocket strengthen, their pulse in perfect harmony with the glow of the platform, and a quiet certainty settled over him. This was the heart of the ruins, the focal point of the power that had once connected the forgotten realms to the spire and the archway. Cyrana stepped forward, her grip firm on the keeper's staff as she held it aloft, its light merging with the platform's glow. The still water surrounding them shimmered faintly, and Adric knelt at the platform's edge, his staff glowing brightly as he traced the carvings with his fingers. "This place has been waiting for us," he said softly, his voice filled with quiet awe. "The power here, it's alive, but it's fractured like the spire. We're not just here to take the relic. We're here to restore it." The air grew heavier as the platform trembled beneath their feet, the golden glow intensifying as though responding to their presence. Orlen felt the ground beneath him shift slightly, and the spiraling patterns on the platform seemed to ripple like liquid light, their movement almost hypnotic. Cyrana lowered the keeper's staff, her expression calm but resolute as she knelt beside the center of the platform. "If we restore it, we might be able to stabilize this entire network," she said thoughtfully, her voice steady despite the tension in the air. "But if we fail, we could destabilize the entire region, or worse." Calen shifted uneasily, his sword still drawn, as his sharp eyes swept the perimeter of the ruins. "Then we can't afford to fail," he said firmly, his voice low but resolute. Orlen felt a flicker of unease as he noticed faint ripples spreading across the water's surface, their motion too deliberate to be caused by the platform's vibrations. He glanced at Cyrana, her expression unchanging, but the growing tension in the air was unmistakable. "Something's watching us," he said softly, his voice trembling slightly. The words felt more like an instinct than an observation, but the weight of them settled heavily over the group. The shadows that had retreated earlier now began to coalesce once more, their movements slow and deliberate as they crept along the edges of the platform's light. Orlen felt his chest tighten as a massive, dark shape emerged from the water, its form twisting and shifting like smoke. The air grew colder, and the hum beneath the platform deepened into a low, resonant tone that seemed to vibrate through the water and the ruins. Cyrana stood quickly, the keeper's staff flaring brightly as she turned to face the advancing shadow, her expression calm but firm. "It's not just a guardian," she said sharply. "It's a remnant of whatever destroyed this place." Adric rose to his feet, his staff glowing fiercely as he stepped beside her, his expression thoughtful but wary. "It's drawn to the light," he said quietly. "To the relic, and to us." The shadow surged forward suddenly, its movement swift and chaotic as it lashed out at the edges of the platform. Calen moved to intercept it, his sword flashing in the golden light as he struck at the nearest tendril of darkness, his movements precise and unyielding. The shadow recoiled briefly, its form flickering as though disrupted by the light. But it pressed forward again, its presence relentless. Orlen stepped closer to the platform's center, his heart pounding as he knelt beside the spiraling patterns that pulsed with a steady, rhythmic glow. The warmth of the relics in his pocket surged, their light merging with the platform's glow, and he felt a sudden wave of clarity wash over him. "The platform! It's a conduit?" he said quickly, his voice trembling but sure. "If we can channel the light through it, we might be able to push the shadow back." Cyrana nodded sharply, her grip on the keeper's staff tightening as she planted it firmly into the platform's surface, its light flaring brilliantly as it merged with the spiraling patterns. The golden glow intensified, flooding the ruins with a radiant light that sent long shadows racing across the water. Adric muttered a quiet incantation, his staff humming loudly as the runes along its length flared brightly, their light weaving into the platform's glow. Calen struck again, his sword cutting through the nearest tendrils of shadow as the light surged outward, scattering the darkness with a wave of radiant energy. The shadow let out a low, resonant roar, its form twisting and writhing as it recoiled from the light, but it continued to press forward, its presence unyielding. The platform trembled violently as the spiraling patterns resolved into a single, unified symbol, its light flaring brighter than ever. Orlen felt the pressure in his chest tighten as the relics in his pocket grew warm, their pulse aligning perfectly with the platform's glow. He reached out instinctively, his fingers brushing against the spiraling symbol, and a surge of energy coursed through him, connecting him to the platform and the ruins in a way he couldn't fully understand. The light of the platform flared one final time, its brilliance flooding the lake and the ruins with an intensity that seemed to freeze the air. The shadow let out a final, resonant wail, its form dissolving into the water as the platform's glow steadied, its hum softening into a low, rhythmic vibration. The water grew still once more, its surface reflecting the faint glow of the platform as the companions stood in silence, their breaths heavy but steady. Cyrana lowered the keeper's staff, her expression calm but resolute as she turned to face the others. "The relic is safe," she said softly, her voice filled with quiet determination. "But this isn't over. There's more to uncover, and more to protect." The horizon shimmered faintly, the distant glow of another ruin marking the path ahead, and Orlen felt the pull of the journey tugging at him once more.